mic was recommended. Am I audible?
Yeah.
All right, great. I'll work on that. So thank you for the invitation. As Reese said, I'm delighted to be here. I love this conference, and it's an honor to be invited to speak at it. So I'd like to switch from normal topics. I promise there will be no double chorus present in this particular talk of mine. This is work that began about going on 10 years ago, actually, when I moved to St. Louis and I met Tao Zhu, who's at Washington University in St. Louis, and Dave Letcher, who's also at St. Louis University. And Tao had this idea about how to use the medial axis but make it better. So that's what this talk is about. Most of the collaborations are with David and Tao, and then a plethora of our students. Kyle just graduated from St. Louis University last year. Lou was Tao's student. It's been 5 years or so, and then Yaji is his current student. So they're not all with those people, but I'll try to cite the appropriate papers as I go. Stop me if anything is unclear. Okay, the medial axis, probably well known, but let's start with the basics. So this was first introduced by Blum in a 1967 paper, defined as a set of points in a shape with more than one closest point on the boundary. So you see the usual canonical 2D picture. I am going to do about half 2D before we move to 3D to set the stage. Now, analogously, in his original paper, he says we can think of this as burning. So what you think of is lighting a fire on the boundary of the shape, burning inward, and any place that it quenches, any place that has two fronts meet, well, that's the medial axis. This is equivalent for nice shapes, and you get these beautiful videos when you work with people in graphics. I do have to thank Hal and his students for this one. So again, an equivalent definition for most settings. It's worth noting this is not equivalent. In fact, this was a CCCG paper we published a few years back. If you have something like piecewise linear, where you can have degeneracies, there's differences between two shortest paths, two geodesics, quench sites meeting. So there's some subtleties here, but for well-behaved shapes, these are totally equivalent. So why is it good? I've become a big believer in the medial axis. I love it. I think it's gorgeous. It has codimension at least one, so you lose a dimension, right? It's somehow thinner than the original object. It does have the same topology as the original shape. Surprisingly, this took a very long time to prove. Remember, Blum was 67. I think I finally heard this story. Day said he was talking about the medial axis at some workshop in the late 90s, and Lidier was in the audience and said, "You really don't know if it's homotopy equivalent? We should work on that." And about 5 years later, published a paper. It's a very sophisticated proof. It's not at all trivial. This is for open-bounded subsets of Rm, so it's quite a general result. And also, this is a little more hazy, but just based on the definition, it's central. It's very nice. So it's a good construct to take a shape and simplify it. Now, before I move on, there's some bad that I should admit to. It is extremely sensitive to boundary perturbations. So even a tiny bump on the boundary introduces, that's a little bit light, but hopefully you can see, an entire new spur off the medial axis. That's usually criticism number one. This is not at all stable under perturbations as defined. This, of course, gets worse with worse shapes. You can get a giant mess with anything even vaguely realistic. Even closed contours are not very nice. It can be very difficult to compute in 3D. In fact, there are no exact algorithms to compute the medial axis except for yeast lines in higher dimensions, I think. Otherwise, in 3D and up, we purely approximate. And here's where you get the Voronoi-based methods. Everybody's probably heard the Menta et al. Starts with her, and then there's a whole sequence of papers you cite when you do surface reconstruction. It turns out the medial axis is the basis of a lot of these surface reconstruction algorithms, and so it's very closely in the literature, at least in the practical literature, intertwined with the linear triangulations and corner diagrams. One also criticism when you get to higher dimensions, it's not codimension one, it's at least codimension one. So when you get to 3D objects, you get all kinds of mess. So I'd have to zoom in there on that messy dolphin that we ran the algorithms on. But it's actually got two-dimensional bits and one-dimensional bits, and they're glued along all kinds of pathological things. It's not at all nice. So cleaning it up is a big process. Okay, hopefully gentle review. Everybody's coffee is kicking in. Okay. So our goal, my picture showed up early, is to use the medial axis to construct skeletons. This is by no means the only goal of the medial axis, but it's what we've always had in mind. It's what Tao really wanted, was sort of skeleton development. The uses for these are everywhere, and my pictures already showed up. Shape modeling, shape segmentation, shape comparison. If this were a graphics conference, I'd have 2 pages of motivation following this slide, but this is a theory conference, so I cut it down to one thing. Really, I think it's a cool problem. I think it's a beautiful object, and there's a lot to do, but then again, at heart, I'm probably closer to a mathematician, so I get laughed at by graphics colleagues for the sparsity of this slide, but everybody's fine with it. Okay. So what is done about the instability, and what do we use these for? So significance measures are often put on the medial axis and used to prune it. And again, likely you've seen some of these in the literature if you've read them at all. A few examples, well, one of the original ones, in fact, if you go back to the original Atali line of work, is object angle. And this means for any point on the medial axis, I can look at its 2 closest points, or if there are more, I can look at the set of points on the boundary, and I can quite simply, in 2D, take the angle between them. This generalizes fairly nicely to 3D. You're still going to have 2 things. You can still look at angles between them. Yeah, it's not too bad. Or you can look at circumradius. That's another common one. This is the one that's the basis for the lambda medial axis, if you're familiar with that. There you're really looking at the distance between the 2 boundary points, or the circumradius of the ball. Okay, so 2 common ones, both in some sense should identify significant features. The idea, and I don't have one of my original pictures here, is something with a larger angle or a bigger distance is probably a bigger portion of the shape. All right, so that's plausible. However, if you prune just based on these, it doesn't look very nice. So on your left, I believe, is object angle pruning. And here's where the topologist in me is highly dissatisfied with this measure. It broke the topology. Okay, that's a non-starter for me. I've talked to graphics people who said, oh, topology is not important. I'm sorry, topology is very important. If I hand you a simply connected shape, you need to hand me back a simply connected graph. That's just non-negotiable in my book. So this is why that one has some critiques, although it's heavily used in surface reconstruction and in a lot of different areas. It wasn't good for our purpose. The other one, circumradius, is pretty nice. And again, if you're familiar with lambda medial axis, that pruning, if you tinker the parameters right, does maintain topology. My quibble with that is that it seems to cut off a lot. In some sense, from a shape perspective, and maybe this ties to the shape analysis I've gotten pulled into, the feet are pretty important. So by trimming, based on circumradius, you've cut off a lot of the bottom of the horse. And if I want to tell a horse from, say, I don't know, a prairie dog or something with tiny feet, the length of those feet is very important. So again, in the skeleton, I don't like cutting off major features. Okay. Good? My critiques. Beautiful measures, though. So a nicer one in 2D is known as potential residue. This is one I really like. So this dates back to 92. This is the shortest distance on the boundary between the 2 nearest points. So rather than look at distance in space, you constrain yourself to the input shape. And again, I'm going to stick to 2D. You'll get the 3D pictures later. It really does capture global features quite nicely. It does generalize to 3D. Tamalde has some nice work on medial geodesic functions, where when you lift to 3D, instead of just 2 options for the path, now you have all the geodesics on the surface, but you can generalize it. And well, they couldn't prove a lot of things about it. I don't think they ever managed to homotopy equivalence proof under the definition. Yeah?
Just a simple question. When you do the proving, do you just use the thresholding method or what? Okay.
All I'm doing is naive thresholding at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's really my goal, is to throw a simple function at the medial axis and get a nice representation back. We'll build on those, but that's kind of the core application. So anyway, here is a demonstration of this is potential residue in 2D, where obviously when you take the 2 closest points, bigger things seem to be more important. In particular, that tiny little spur, which I think from a shape perspective is probably noise or a detail I don't really care about, would get eliminated by most proving. Okay. The natural generalization, like I said, is this medial geodesic. In 3D, here's what it starts to look like. This is going to be small paper, not my picture. So the closest points there are shown in blue, and then you're tracing geodesics on the surface. And this is all implemented and quite nice. The main drawback I see here, besides the fact that they couldn't prove a lot with it, I'm stuck on a lot of it, was that geodesic queries are relatively slow on 3D objects. Their actuarial algorithm is an approximation, and even that is a bit intractable to a graphics person. While they like it, it wasn't optimized very well for speed. So again, a nice function, but we were looking for something a little faster for large data sets. Okay. So the other significance measure, and this is only in 2D, is a slightly more recent one called erosion thickness. This is defined as how much the shape erodes if you prune the medial axis. And I'm hand waving a bit there, but the definition is sort of in the picture. If I were to prune at X in this picture on the right, I could look at the ball, and I could cut off anything further away towards outside the ball. You see I've shaded that in blue there. And so that red dotted line, anybody colorblind? Stop me if that doesn't make sense. That red dotted line is how much, in a sense, the shape has shrunk. There's a number of ways you can define this. This is the one they went with, and it turned out to be a very nice measure. Okay, so here's a plethora of related work and in context because I'm going to compare to them later and I want to make sure. So, all right, this does seem more robust to noise. So on the left is potential residue, and on the right is this erosion thickness. So potential residue, again, is the one that goes out along the outside of the shape and takes the closest geodesics. So when particular kinds of noise are added, and this is a bit artificial, I mean, we've deliberately added a lot of noise only to one half of the object. The key has gotten spikier. When you add all the spikes, of course, the length along the boundary gets longer. And so what that square is meant to show you is that the highest point, the center point, so to speak, has shifted quite a bit over with potential residue. The nice thing with erosion thickness, how much it erodes, is that it doesn't shift in comparison. The center point stays roughly in the same spot, which we liked as far as stability went. Okay, so pros and cons, many different measures. There's a lot more, but sort of these are the most theoretically sound ones that we looked at when we were starting this project. Okay. Now, downsides to it, it is limited to 3D. There's no real notion of generalizing this erosion process to 3D that we were aware of. Certainly a lot of people have looked at it. It's also a bit ad hoc. There's not sort of a nice closed form definition. It's, you take the point, you make the ball, and so it's actually computed sort of iteratively by a pruning method if you go back to the original paper. But you can't prove anything. Yes, it looks stable, but how the heck do I prove that it's stable? Again, topologist. I'm there to prove things. It's how they implement them. It's beautiful. So it was less satisfying in this sense. But again, this was one we were after here. What we found was there was a surprising connection between erosion thickness and the measure we were looking at, which is inspired by this burning. So I'll get to that in a minute. So the picture, again, that he gave us when we started collaborating is, well, okay, let's take the medial axis and let's imagine burning it again. Let's just take this grass fire analogy and run with it. So if I light a fire on the boundary of every boundary point of the medial axis, I can, again, burn inward along the medial axis. Now the question is, it's not a manifold anymore, right? A one-dimensional manifold, you just have a curve. I have junctions here. So what we decided to do was maintain continuity. Again, we got to working with topologists who we demand topological accuracy. So when the fire burns in from a junction and hits a region there, it just dies. The only way you can keep burning is if you're somehow exposed, if you're the last one coming through. Okay. I'll let the movie play out because I think it's pretty. So again, this is how we intuitively wanted to define it. This was the picture he showed us at our very first meeting. And the challenge was to formalize this and make a mathematical definition. And it seems nice, but is it nice? What can we prove? This is all, by the way, with Lou. I believe this was an SGP paper in 2011. I have their own conference. Okay, so this was in the original 2D called the extended distance function. I hated that name and lobbied successfully to recall it the burn time. So I'll use EDF and the extended distance function, EDF and burn time interchangeably, so pardon that. So we can view this sort of uniformly as when we burn in from the medial axis, as soon as something is exposed by that fire front, we keep burning. So you don't start burning until the radius, basically. Okay, so you get something nice, simply connected shapes. This gives us all kinds of nice things here.
Could you explain exposed again?
Yeah, so the idea is, and let me sketch real quick here. If I have a branch coming in here, so you're burning in from this direction and from this direction. Say these are my boundary points, and it carries on. So when I reach this junction, there were two options. If you're burning, you could keep burning, and burn that way and that way. Or you could die out and wait for something that's just burning along a curve. Now, I'm jumping ahead a few slides maybe, but remember our idea is pruning. We really want to get significant portions, like a nice center point. Well, if I want to prune based on a significance measure, if I were to burn away here, I would destroy the topology. When I'd be thresholding, I'd wind up with something here and something there. And that's not at all what we were going for. We want something that maintains topology. We want a definition retract, really, or a return. Yeah?
And this, when you say center point, you mean like the maximum of this function?
Exactly. So on a simply connected shape, again, I'm jumping a few slides, this will result in a nice, unique local maximum. Yeah?
If you look at straight skeleton, that's the rule line, it's not the same thing.
It's not quite the same thing. In particular in 3D, it's something very different. In 2D, I have to look, actually, but in 3D it's not. Okay, so I'll formalize exposing here in a moment. Here we go, formalize. And this is really important. Borrowing on the slide. This is very important when we get to 3D, which is not for a little while yet. So an exposing, or we say an exposing tree is a rooted tree at some point where all the leaves have to be on the boundary of the medial axis, and each tree has to branch when it crosses. So you can think of this as sort of the natural generalization of a path here. Anytime I cross a junction, you have to go both ways. Okay? So you see an example there. There is another one, right? You could come from the other way and have another one. But if I left off any one of those branches, this would not be an exposing tree because I'm not forcing it to branch. This doesn't have to be on simply connected shapes. But note, if you're on something that, say, has a cycle, that tree is going to go around infinitely often because it's always going to have to keep going when it crosses the juncture. It can never leave the cycle if there is one in the graph. So the length of an exposing tree is the longest root-to-leaf path plus local feature size plus the size of the ball at the leaf. Remember, we start burning from the boundary and we move it in. And then the burn time of the point is the minimum over all trees of the length of the tree. So I can use minimum here if I've got nice graphs. Feel free to replace it with infimum if you're a mathematician and prefer something more general, because that's really what it is in the paper. But these are nice finite trees, and we're happy to use minimum here. Okay, so the length is indicated in red. That's the shorter of the two trees for that particular point X. Pretty clear. Questions? Okay, so this is how we chose to formalize the definitions. And again, we did this deliberately, partially because we were already thinking about the 3D problem, which is much, much harder, but we get there. So we proved that it exists and is finite everywhere except the maximally closed subcomplex. So if you have something that burns that's a closed subcomplex, a cycle in my graph, well, we're going to burn all the way up. But if you think about exposing trees for something on the cycle, I go over here and I give you this. And I break the chalk. Hold on a minute. If I take a point here, if I want an exposing tree that goes this way, well, it's crossing a junction, so it's going to have to go both this way and this way for this exposing tree. And okay, you're going to cycle around and do the same thing. And so you get it to be essentially infinite. We just defined it that way on the maximum closed subcomplex. So we can't really deal with non-simply connected shapes. This is, in a sense, one of the critiques of our method. Topology is the most important thing. And so you're not allowed to break the topology. And anything you do to that loop is going to destroy topology. So it's sacred, and we're not allowed to touch it, even if it's tiny. Okay, so properties we get. It is continuous except at the branch points. So on the nice one manifold regions, of course. Even at the branch points, there is a sort of one manifoldy disk neighborhood where it's continuous, right? It's still continuous along the main branch, which turns out to be really important for some of the applications later. It has no local minimum, so it's good for finding center points, and that was one of the main stories we told. We compared to other notions of center points. There's the centroid, geodesic center, and geographic center, which are either possibly external or on the boundary or non-unique. Ours is unique, and there's only one, and it's very nice and central. We actually implemented this on more general ones, so this is why I asked about color line. Hopefully you raised your hand. Nobody raised their hand. The red one is the center point, and you'll notice it stays very fixed in the center of the trunk, no matter how the shape articulates, right? No matter what the movement is. This is a very nice center point. So we did all kinds of things with shape matching based on this. Oops, sorry. Probably a picture later, where we were able to sort of match one shape to another based on the function. Very nice. Okay. This also ties back to erosion thickness in a really meaningful way. So it turns out erosion thickness is burn time minus the radius. So here is an explicit, closed form, very nice definition of erosion thickness from a mathematical framework. Because we can find these trees, we can look for minimums or minimums, and on we go. In a sense, what we're looking for, again, is shape. Erosion thickness is, if you talk to the graphics people, they wave their hands a lot, and they say in some sense it's measuring tubularity. It's measuring, if you take a point here, how close to tubular is the shape? If you have a small erosion thickness, it's not very tubular. You're near a flat area. But if you've got a large tube around you, you're going to have a large erosion thickness. And then burn time is sort of length and thickness, of course. We're all familiar with local feature size or the radius. Okay, so that's the hand-wavy shape side of things. This is what the graphics people were interested in. So here's my shape alignment picture. We also lifted this to the boundary. I believe we call that boundary eccentricity, but it's really just the natural lift to the boundary of the shape. And again, then we used it for matching shapes. We matched sort of the local maxes the maximums or minimums to each other, and we got beautiful alignments. So people I know in computer vision are now using this and trying to explore it for their problems. Okay. So in 2D, and this is I thank Dave Letcher for these. In 2D, here's what, and here the darker indicates a higher value. You can see what the distance function versus object angle versus potential residue and burn time look like. And again, potential residue and burn time are both quite nice in that they're going to stay much larger at core features of the shape. They just don't, they aren't as noisy. If you look at object angle, things are appearing and disappearing. If you look at pruning in 2D, it becomes even more stark. So potential residue for the right values does stay connected. There's a little bit of noise here. Burn time will always stay connected. If you threshold, you get a nice representation. Okay. Still good?
What did you mean by lifting?
Sorry. So what we did here was essentially for each boundary point, it inherited its medial axis value. That's the core of the function. There's a little bit of noise added in, but essentially we just took a medial axis point and its two closest points got its value. And when you project that outward onto the boundary, it gives really nice alignment properties. It's less good for blobby shapes, but for articulated shapes, people or animals, it maps very nicely. Okay, let me fast forward past these at 11. Okay, so this motivated us to look at a notion of stability. This is actually work I was not joined with. This was in CCCG last year by Kyle Sykes, my student, and Dave Letcher. So if we look at just union of balls and we look at what the medial axis is in this, again, this is sort of, I'm looking at the 2D version, but this is the core of all these Voronoi-based methods for medial axis reconstruction. The vertices on the medial axis are either centers of disks that meet the boundary. You can see some of those on the boundary of my shape, or they're Voronoi vertices. Edges connect pairs of Voronoi vertices. But they have a pair of singular points, and the singular points turn out to be very important. The red points are the singular ones. The places on the boundary that are not contiguous, those are my junctions. Those are what are going to define the shape of the medial axis. And again, if you've seen Voronoi diagrams, you can start to see how you extend this out, and here's how they get computed. So in this setting, we can talk about when the medial axis changes. And so here's 4 of the local pictures of how it changes. You could have 2 balls, if we're imagining moving or growing radius or looking at it, how it evolves, like that dancer picture, things could hit each other. That's topology change. Those are bad, so we'll get back to that in a minute. But you could also imagine, an edge of the, let's see, in the Voronoi diagram here on the top right, and as the balls are moving and the little fins are meant to be those boundary vertices, sort of, you have a flip, right? You've gone from having an edge this way to having an edge that way. This corresponds to a flip in a Voronoi diagram, or delayed triangulation, sorry, you flip those. You can also have a ball that's occluded, but grows or moves enough that it pops out, and in 2 different ways. Those have slightly different combinatorial changes. In particular, this one down here introduces an entire new spur, which is sort of why this is not at all continuous, right? As soon as something new appears, you're going to get a whole new piece appearing. The only one of these I don't want to think about is topology changes. Topology changes I can't deal with. I believe in topology, and so we're going to look at how these can move as long as the overall topology doesn't change. So you're not allowed to create cycles or join things. But otherwise, it turns out a lot of these are fairly stable as things move. So they started, if there's no change in the combinatorics of the singular points, you still have the same number and they still come from the same interior points, so to speak, then the medial axis actually varies continuously in the half-stroke measure. And the picture, the medial axis away from degeneracies is continuous, and at degenerate configurations, new branches in fact grow continuously. So the picture to think about is this one. Here's proof by one picture, and there's much more case analysis in the paper. But you can see, as this changes, what's happening. This is gradually shrinking to nothing and then growing out the other way. So it's somehow still pretty continuous. So this lemma, in a sense, characterizes when deformations are continuous, but it's useful in the next piece here. So they also, in that paper, considered the extended Hausdorff distance. It's sort of natural here. I'm going to, instead of just looking at the shapes, I'm going to look at the shape plus function value. All right? And if you take a point that's not in the shape, I'm just going to give it 0. All right? So I'm literally bumping it up a dimension, and that extra dimension is the significance measure if 1 exists, or 0 if nothing exists. In other words, two spaces are going to be closed if every point either has a very small function value, or if it's nearby to a point with a similar function value. Right, so I'm just adding Hausdorff in this slightly higher dimensional space. This is necessary because whole new branches of the medial axis could appear, but when they appear, somehow they're not very significant under most of these measures, and that's the intuition beside this. So the actual theorem they get is for circumradius, object angle, potential residue, or erosion thickness. If you prune the medial axis based on some value, it actually is going to vary continuously as long as alpha moves continuously. You hit one degeneracy at a time, and it doesn't change the topology. Again, topology is a non-starter for this particular setup. In comparison to the lambda medial axis, which is the other known sort of continuity result, it applies for any threshold, so in that sense, it's a bit stronger. It also applies for any of these significance measures, and in some way, they're all fairly nice. But it's weaker. It's continuity and not one-licious. So there's not as strong a notion of similarity here, but that's, I think, an interesting one here. That's just the proof shrunk, in case you forgot what was on the previous slide. The proof of this is actually pretty sophisticated. It revolves around the fact that these degenerate configurations can be described by systems of polynomials. You're in some high-dimensional configuration space, and so we can talk about polynomial systems intersecting transversely and avoid degeneracies. A lot of case analysis and a bit messy. Okay. So that's the weak notion of continuity we can prove. I think that for burn time, a stronger notion holds, but we haven't managed to prove it yet. I really need to unpack that Levier results and a few of the lambda medial axis results a bit more and see if anything applies, but we haven't had any lot so far. Okay, so one extension that is not my work, but that I think is kind of interesting in 2D like shape. So here I have to switch back to calling it EDF, because unfortunately when they published it, they call it the weighted EDF. So I can't call it burn time for this slide. So EDF is simply the length of the longest tube. And the criticism they had of this, which was totally justified, is if you look at that red point in the center here, the longest tube is the right, and this long snaky thing, right? That one is longer. So if you imagine burning on this medial axis, which is the blue plus green, you're going to burn the left side away more quickly, and then the fire front's actually going to be continuous on the long snaky tube. So with this particular project, what they were after was decomposing, finding what is a detail, what is a main part of the shape, and sort of decomposing into a hierarchy of fine details, major components in the core shape. So they didn't like this, is the long and short of it. This was their critique. So they generalized. Instead of EDF, they went with weighted EDF, where they didn't talk about length. They did the natural thing and talked about area. So now the left trunk is going to be the long snaky tube, because the long snaky tube has very small area. It's kind of a natural extension. The function behaves very nicely, and in fact, this is all stolen from their talk, so I have to thank Catherine Leonard for sharing pictures with me. Really what they were looking for, if you look at this sort of cartoony shape, which is a square with a tail, EDF would identify the tail as being very important because it's long, right? That's what we're interested in. WEDF instead is going to correctly identify the square as the main part of the shape. And so the sort of the highest value axis flips to being inside the square, which I think is quite nice. And again, they were trying to separate features from core shapes. They were all about decomposing and ranking how important something was inside of the shape. It does have notion of continuity, which is quite nice. It jumps at branch points, but it remains continuous across a main trunk, just a different one than EDF. This is actually the core feature they use to decide decompositions. So these are two pictures from their paper. The left is an automated one, where it just detected clusters of how many shapes there should be. So what they decided to do was continue a part across the branch point only if the adjacent branch jumps value quite a bit. Right, so then you're identifying, the idea being, draw a nicer sketch here. If you have some, shape, but then you have squiggles here, these are going to look something like this, right? This, well, maybe I should make it longer. Here, this is going to burn out much sooner than this burns in, even in weighted or EDF, actually. So in weighted, what they decided was this was the main piece of the shape, and these should be cut off as details. And they project that out to the shape. So that's what you're seeing here with the elephant. They correctly identified on the left one the yellow as the main shape, and then they pulled off legs. When they refined their automated clustering algorithm, they got the thing on the right, which is much nicer. Their goal there was to pull off all the legs, all the things at the same level of detail. So they have a true hierarchy of shapes. The paper, it's a visualization paper, they have a user study, correlating their methods and showing that they do really well. Most of which I don't understand very clearly. But the shape part of it is glorious. It's also fairly robust to noise in practice, unsurprisingly, given what EDF has. And it's phenomenal, again, at articulated images where something moves. So it seems to be very good, in particular, at pulling out images of people or animals or anything with a sort of unique shape signature that's just moving. Okay, so that's WEDF. I think this is a beautiful generalization. They haven't gotten it to 3D yet. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be coming soon. That was their goal. So, okay, so now let me move my project, the burn time, to 3D. So everybody ready? We always have to brace ourselves for 3D, right? It's all so much worse. Okay, so if I look at the medial axis algorithms, the standard ones do yield piecewise flat cellular complexes, in fact, flat triangulations, where the local geometry is sheets glued along curves. So in fact, generically, even union of balls, if you dive through various literature, citing Blum and Kenya, but there's others, there are 6 local pictures possible. You can have, this is generic, I'm avoiding lower dimensional degeneracies, which we do have to deal with, but you either have something that looks like a 2 manifold, or a boundary point, those are the top 2. In the middle, you have 3 sheets glued along it, so you can think about like surfboard, right, or something with fin glued on top. You can also have that as a boundary point as well. You can have something a little messier where you have something that looks like a 2 manifold sheet and a half fin, right? So you have sort of a point in the lower one, which is not quite boundary, but it's the limit of boundary. And then the worst one is when you have a sheet and you glue something one way and you glue something the other way. And that's been the source of 10 years of headaches. So we'll come back to that picture in a bit. Intuitively, though, the definition and the motivation is the same. I want to take the medial axis, which is going to be this nice triangulation, Delaunay base, and start burning at the boundary and just proceed inward. The problem is, these junctions are very cyclical. These are not. And so this notion of exposed, when do I want to burn away? When do I want to pause the burning? Is what took probably 6 years of dithering before we agreed on the definition. So the final result, which this is a SIGGRAPH paper from last year, we say a point X is exposed in its neighborhood by a set of adjacent sheets if it has no disk neighborhood. Okay, so there is no way to form a disk neighborhood. Now, for some pictures, this is pretty simple. If I look at the 3 sheets glued together, well, any 2 sheets expose a point on there. So basically, that's the natural generalization of this 2D picture. One sheet burns away, and it stops because there's there's still a disk neighborhood. It can't break the topology. So the bottom sheet would then burn away later from one direction or another. I'm not drawing complex triangles. It gets messier. You'll get the real pictures towards the end. Now, the headache, as I said, is this local picture. So this is a sheet with two half spaces glued in different orientations. And I'm drawing sort of a nice combinatorial picture, but this happens in all sorts of messy ways. So I've labeled the neighborhoods here. A, B, C, D are the bottom four quadrants, where in between those two singular curves, and then you have E and F, the top and the bottom. Now, how can you expose things? Well, so if I remove, the left picture is meant to be removing F, that doesn't expose anything. You'll notice there's many sheets remaining around the center point. That really pathological X in the middle has, well, you could take A and B and E, and there's this neighborhood, or you could take B and C and E, and there's this neighborhood, or there's the bottom sheet. There's all sorts of neighborhoods. So that is not exposed. Likewise, if I take any one quadrant, or one quadrant and a bottom sheet, and removing any two sheets, well, I should be a little careful there, but by and large won't expose the point. When is it exposed? Well, like I said, no closed disk surrounding it, and there's a lot of different ways that can happen. I mean, there's some pretty, you gotta wrap your heads around the pictures. You could have, for example, a neighborhood that is E, D, F, and B. These don't have to be nice disks. I'm a topologist, so I'm ignoring the geometry for a moment. You just have to be able to paste together some kind of weird singularity disk. There's all sorts of ways to do that, but you can start to look at generically when something is exposed. So like I said, this was sort of the key thing, was when did we really want to burn, and it involved many, many pictures. So formally then, an exposing tree is again going to be a finite tree, rooted at a point, with leaves on the boundary of the medial axis. Now, all edges of the tree, and I mean this in the combinatorial sense, right? Think about a tree, any edge must stay in the two-manifold region. So the weirdness happens when you cross one of these singularities, when you cross the singular set. So here's a nice tree. It doesn't cross any singularities, so it's just a path to the boundary of the medial axis. Hopefully that shows up okay. Now, when you cross, the root of the subtree must be exposed, or sorry, the root of that particular subtree has to be exposed by the sheets nearby that the subtree is on in some local neighborhood. So you get things like this, which intuitively do precisely what we want them to do. When you cross a junction, branch, and this is an exposing tree. I'm not showing you the more complicated picture. It's only a 55-minute talk. There's a paper. You can go read it. It's a little uglier because there's many, many ways that more complex neighborhood can be exposed, all sorts of cases and checking to make sure it works, but it goes through. The longest path in the tree, the longest root to leaf path plus radius of the leaf, is again the length of the tree, and here we need an infimum. You can't go minimum for anything. It's geodesics on surfaces. It's bad and a lot more pathological. So here we get this weird thing where it's very possible to have a sequence of exposing trees which converge to the burn time, to the minimum possible one, but you can't actually realize it because it's going to cross in some weird way. So anyway, just to point out, there's a lot of limits hiding here somewhere. But problems with the tree. Okay, so then we say the burn time is the infimum over all possible trees boundary in this way. So for, in particular, that X, there are two possible burn trees. Whichever one has a better minimum or better length is going to be your burn tree. So how does this behave? Well, it behaves just like we expect. So here's a pretty contrived example, one of the first ones we worked out, where again, a base and a fin, and we're going to look at different ways these things can interact. So as you burn inward, the fire front dies out on the fin because it's smaller, and in this case, the fire front dies out completely, and the bottom sheet burns away, and you have this beautiful burn time function, which looks a lot like medial geodesic. Where it gets more interesting is where, here's another example where I've just widened the fin. And now in this one, the fin is still dying out, the top sheet, but at some point, the back catches up. And that's what I've drawn in the second picture. There's a vertex which is equidistant from the boundary on the top sheet and the boundary on the bottom sheet. At this point, the fire fronts swap. The bottom is going to die out, and the top is what we're going to be continuous on. Right, so again, we're going to have this disk neighborhood property where you're almost continuous in a disk. Officially, you're continuous in the disk at the point. You're not continuous across the entire disk. There can be discontinuities away from the center point, but it all converges nicely to the center point in a disk neighborhood. So you can see then that it sort of swaps and you get these weird divots in the level sets. I don't know a better way to say that. With me? Okay. And again, I can think of this in the fire front, but this is actually computed with the exposure tree definition. This is a more combinatorial framework, which is what we needed to prove things about it. Okay, so in this SIGGRAPH paper, we managed to prove that it's upper semi-continuous anywhere. It's actually continuous on the manifold regions, but when you jump, you only jump in the expected way. It gets smaller, so that's upper semi-continuity. On the manifold regions, it's actually one that shifts continuous, quite beautiful. It is finite, again, away from the maximally closed subcomplex. So in this case, it's not loops we can't handle, it's spheres. We can't handle higher dimensional topology because, again, I can't break topology. It breaks me on the highs. Topology is very important. So, okay, if I go back to the 2D picture, we were talking about erosion thickness and how that's burn time minus the radius. This, one of the reasons the SIGGRAPH people liked it, is this actually extends erosion thickness to 3D for the first time. So erosion thickness is somehow measuring in 3D how plate-like you look. You have a very high erosion thickness value when you're on this bottom plate. And that's, again, sort of burn time, which is width instead of length in 3D, and radius, which is how thick the shape is. So again, it's a way to extract different types of features. My collaborator, Tao, had all kinds of medical imaging people that he was chatting with about how to extract features with aneurysms. I don't know, it all sounded very cool, but a little more applied than I got to. Okay, so this was, I believe that, if I go back to the title, I think it was actually sold as erosion thickness, not burn time. To me, though, the core function that is the key here is the burn time function. It's this iterative burning, or equivalently this exposing tree definition. Okay, I still have time to show you some pictures. It's difficult to compute this exactly. We have an algorithm. This actually only appears in my student's thesis because we can't guarantee that it terminates. It's based on the Mitchell-Mountain Papametrio geodesics. It's really ugly things, because things can cycle back around, right? You're not on a manifold. You're on something with singular set, and so is your prop. If you're familiar with that algorithm, it's a mess of propagating windows everywhere. Things can subdivide. And anyway, when it terminates, we can compute it, but I can't prove that it terminates, even though it seems to on every example we've looked at. So instead, we actually did the graphics thing, and we used some approximation graph algorithm. We used an approximate Dijkstra. So we took each triangle, because remember, medial axis approximations only give you flat triangles. We took the triangle, we subdivided the little epsilon windows, and so any path across is approximated by something slightly longer. The usual thing here. So what are we able to prove? If you look at the actual theorem, we get really what you expect. You get constant error per bit you cross. You can read the theorem, but you don't have to. Exactly what you expect when, if you subdivide finely enough, going from the real path to the approximate one in the graph doesn't cost you too much. The proof is really the same as this lengthier paper for approximating geodesics on meshes. I think this was a sausage paper, but it's possible I'm misremembering. But in any case, it works very well. It gives you an accurate estimation. The final results are these beautiful pictures. God, I love graphics collaborators where you can propagate the burn time in and get a nice picture of what's happening here. So what's shown here is sort of the 3D bubbled shape on the outside and the medial axis on the inside. These do get a lot messier. In reality, you are going to have low dimensional things and all sorts of stuff to deal with. Okay, so that's the core burn time function. Now, we then went back to erosion thickness and said, well, we can approximate burn time, so we can approximate erosion thickness, right? There's this relation. So this means, here's an original dolphin versus one where we've added a whole bunch of spiky bits on the boundary. Unlike a lot of the other functions, this one still captures the core features. That's what I'm trying to indicate here. This is maybe I didn't explain this earlier, the traditional SIGGRAPH thing is higher values, get warmer colors, you color. Anyway, it's a whole thing there. So whether it's the original or the noisy, you're somehow extracting the core components of the shape either way. And again, this is sort of a natural generalization of our simple thin feature with the more complex objects. As in 2D, we get nicer comparisons, so you can lift object angle or circumradius, and again, the same problems happen. The dolphin over there, if you just threshold by object angle, is messy and disconnected. Circumradius, it's going to cut, and that's the lambda medial axis essentially, so that's going to cut off features which we would consider important in the shape analysis. So erosion thickness is able to sort of keep the whole thing connected and extract core plate-like features wherever they are if you threshold based on values. The comparison with medial geodesic function, well, so this is, on the left there, meant to be the key in 3D, right? You have a flat thing here, but then a flat thing where I've added a bunch of boundary nodes. So again, this is not at all uniform noise. This is pathologically chosen to show where the medial geodesic function doesn't stay stable. But again, the whole thing moves over. If you look at the column that's medial geodesic, the warm part shifts quite a bit. But because the noise on the boundary pulls you that way, right? The length has gotten a lot longer, the geodesic length. The real comparison though, erosion thickness obviously stays more stable, but it's much faster. So this is the implementation Tao and Naji did run on Tao's laptop, I think, and the example took 15 minutes for medial geodesic and took 18 seconds for erosion thickness because it's this fast Dijkstra approximation. So we liked that. Again, I'll talk about some of the applications at the end, but we're looking at large data sets for this. We really want to analyze shapes that are quite detailed, and so that's important. Just thresholding though doesn't necessarily work very well for erosion thickness. You can lose pieces. So really what we were after was a skeleton. And the first idea we had was sort of do the medial axis thing, right? Let's look at the quench sites. Let's look at where two fronts on the medial axis burning hit each other. So that has an immediate problem. If you look over here, the black thing are the quench sites and it's disconnected. I need topology. Very important. So that was no good. So somehow we want to get all the ridges of the burn time function. There is still a ridge on the bottom that reconnects that into a tree, but it's not a quench site. It's a ridge. It's a discontinuity, not an actual collision of two different fronts. So we're dithering on this definition right now. This is where we're stuck to get the precise formulation. The interesting thing though is here's where our approximation saved us. Given our approximate burn time, we keep what we call the burn edges, the ones that actually contribute to burn time, that's the red and the blue ones that have stuck around. Some of them are going to be interior to a triangle, some of them are going to be boundary. It doesn't really matter. So if we just keep the ones that in some sense realize burning, we can dualize, and that's the green over here. That is an approximation of what we're looking for. It's not exactly what we're looking for, because of course we're approximating anyway, but if we dualize it in the graph theory setting, we get something that looks pretty nice. So here's the original medial axis, and over here, I've shown here the burn paths in the middle, at least, but over here is the dual. And the dual is somehow nicely semi-approximating what we want our skeleton to be. Our burn axis is what I hope to call it someday, if we ever get a good definition. And if I weight these, it gets a little bit nicer. So the thing on the right, the thing on the left has a nice trace where you really see it pops out what the core skeleton is. So if we threshold based on that, we get the same relationship, tubularity, length, and width. Here's my favorite dolphin that appears over and over again. And the interesting thing is, while burn time pops out, sort of this core skeleton, erosion thickness really pops it out. That red and blue that's lighter pulls out a simply connected skeleton, which gives you a nice model of the dolphin. Notice the fin over there now just has two curves representing sort of the two prominent features, and that's how it calls it tubularity. That's what he's interested in. Okay, so the resulting skeletons I think are just beautiful. You come up with these glorious one-dimensional representations of three-dimensional objects. In principle, there's nothing stopping us from generalizing to higher dimension. You can take this burning analogy up a dimension any way you want. These exposing trees will generalize with a lot more cases and some more ugliness, but you can actually use this to get sort of a multi-dimensional burning process, where for any dimension, I will give you that dimension representation of your input shape. I wouldn't recommend trying to look at that past 3D right now. The algorithms aren't there, but it's an interesting theory. So we do also extend this to get hybrid skeletons, where we look at the difference here. So if the feature seems to be one-dimensional, we pull out the one-dimensional piece. But if there's a large plate-like object, if burn time tells me something interesting is going on, we can glue back in certain thresholds of 2D things. Again, this was more the graphicsy application, but pretty pictures, right? It's a good way to end the last 10 minutes of the talk. In comparison, really the only mixed dimensional comparison is the scale axis transform. This is, I apologize, I didn't put in a definition, the one where you take all the balls, you blow them up slightly, and then shrink again and extract things. The problem with the scale axis is it's noisy at a small scale, and it destroys topology at a large scale. So this is the hand, and at a large scale, you wind up rejoining things that shouldn't be joined again. I've introduced a cycle when there wasn't the original shape, which again, non-starter for me, so we were happier with the skeleton that we came up with there. So we're still working on this explicit burn axis definition. We need to include, like I can look at the picture and tell you what it should be, but we've been struggling with a formal definition of it for quite some time now. This is actually from a CCCG paper many years ago, because this is the first paper where we realized if you look at the traditional medial axis setting, piecewise linear surfaces, that curvature is really an issue, right? So if I look at the set of things closest to 2 points versus the set of things that have 2 shortest paths, versus the set of things that have some geodesic ball that hits 2 boundary points, these are not the same object on a piecewise linear. It's just too pathological. So somehow where there's curvature, because again, I want to implement these, they need to be on real meshes. Where there's curvature, I need to get rid of 2-dimensional sheets to get a skeleton again. You don't even get codimension 1 if you do this naive burning. So there's myriad issues to work out, and my co-author is a source of pathological examples and restores every definition we've thrown at him, but we're still working on this. Stability in 3D, well, as mentioned, we have 2D. The case analysis for 3D broke me. I think I gave up on case 20 of 60. I had it that summer, right after he presented this. I was like, we're going to prove this, and the cases exploded, and they're horrible, and again, you have to write down the polynomial systems for, the way 3-dimensional balls can morph around is more than 2-dimensional balls. So it just blew up the case analysis. Every case we looked at was true, but we can't prove it using those techniques. The function does seem quite stable in practice. I think this is worth looking at, but we're going to use some new techniques to do it. Recently, we've been kind of excited about applications. So this is my collaborator, Chris Kopp. He works on plants. I work with a biologist. It's very exciting now. So these are his corn roots. So he grows them in this gel, and he takes high accuracy scans of them. He also digs them out and washes them and scans them. So this is the machine, he puts it in, and it takes these beautiful high resolution, different types of imaging of them. And so the glory of this is he's handled us a data set of simply connected things, and he wants to know what shape they are. So what he does is genetic analysis. He says, okay, it looks like it has this shape. That correlates with these genes. We should breed this corn, and we'll make better corn. And that's his work. The problem is he doesn't really know shapes. He doesn't, what they do literally is like count roots and count this, like they do nothing sophisticated. At one point, they just had 2D pictures and they put a maximum enclosing box. And they got some amazing genetic results just from these naive shape descriptors. So what we're taking is his root data and using our skeletons. And beyond our skeletons, we're trying to use our shape descriptor and really extract meaningful features. This is very much in progress. We're at the point where we have the shape descriptors, and now we get to feed it back into his genetic analysis machine that I don't understand at all, but he assures me it will correlate beautiful things, and it's glorious. One of the WEDF questions that remains, they can extend in 2D. I believe the 3D is forthcoming, but they still can't handle non-simply connected shapes. And while we want to maintain topology above all, if you're interested in more of this features, and if you have a 3D shape with a tiny little ball that's noise, you probably still want to get rid of that. So a way to weight these and get rid of, mine doesn't care if you have this or this, right? So this is one where mine will fail because this and that will both be infinite. I don't care how big they are. So they've suggested that WEDF might be the way to get around this somehow. If you weight small cycles less than big ones, you're going to break the topology, but maybe I can get around that someday if they can deal with details. Okay, that's a few pretty pictures to ponder, and thank you for your attention.
Questions there?
So in this burning metaphor, from the beginning of the talk, going back to Blum, I guess, you start by burning the shape. But then instead you take the medial axis, and then everything after that you're burning the medial axis itself.
Yes.
So that everything you get is always, like all of these examples, I guess maybe except the shape axis transform, are all subsets of the true medial axis.
Yes. Well, this is too, actually. We're burning to the medial axis and then burning on the medial axis. So we are getting a subset.
Right. So it seems, is there, it seems like there might be an alternative approach where you try to, don't limit yourself to looking for a subset of the true medial axis. For instance, if you were to somehow smooth, if the problem is bumps on the shape, you can imagine just kind of smooth the bumps? I don't know if it's.
No, that's an interesting idea. We chose not to simply because, again, our priorities were reduce the dimension, stay central, maintain topology. The medial axis guarantees centrality. That's the only reason we stayed on the medial axis. The interesting thing would be trying to smooth in such a way that you don't lose that centrality. So that's why we chose that, but I think that'd be a really interesting question.
Are you sure that your approximation approaches the true burn function when something goes to the period?
Yes. Yes, as that epsilon. So this is based on this Lampier proof, which is approximating geodesics on meshes. And they prove that as the number of Steiner points you're at when you build your graph goes to infinity, you approximate the true geodesic distance. The same proof goes through for us. In practice, we find we're ridiculously close if you put 7 points per image. I mean, it doesn't require many, and they found the same thing on their paper. It's surprising how well it works.
I have a question actually. When someone did you this with any kind of skeleton that particular thing?
You mean in 2D or in 3D?
Both.
Yeah.
I'm straight skeleton, but we could also use.
Yeah, you can burn on anything. I mean, the idea is just start on the boundary and prove
Right,
it.
all the properties that we do, we could want.
Assuming you have a nice enough skeleton, yes. I mean, the upper semi-continuous, the continuity on a disk neighborhood, all of that just comes from how the burning proceeds on the medial axis. So I suspect at least in 2D that would go immediately for any other skeleton. 3D it would be dependent on how pathological it is.
So, intuitively, it seems like you're taking the medial axis within the medial axis.
Exactly,
So
that's
that's
all.
the thing, if you're trying to do 3D and straight skeletons, would be to do a 2D straight skeleton within 3D straight skeleton.
Which would be interesting. Again, you're going to come across a lot of pathologies because on a piece, so all of these niceness properties assume a nice shape. And as soon as I have a piecewise linear medial axis or any other thing piecewise linear, now the medial axis is not codimension 1, right? We have two-dimensional sheets. That's the CCCG paper we had. So the problem is as soon as you go to this next level, you seldom have as nice of a construct because you're usually approximating or doing something not as nice.
Joe, did you ever consider reconstructing a shape from your trimmed?
Yeah, in fact, that's essentially what we're doing with the corn roots. So the corn roots are messy. If you go, if I pull back up that picture, I mean, these are simply connected, and that thing is not simply connected. There's all this noise and error. So what we're doing is trying to simplify using the skeleton and then reconstruct the original thing. That's hard, but give me a year and hopefully I'll have something.
Sort of related, when you're looking at the corn roots, there's a sort of hidden reconstruction shape to go
Yes.
from a discrete point set to. So is that a black box for your methods or so far?
Currently, for this one, it's a black box. I would suspect we're going to need to unpack the black box because what I think we're finding is our skeletons can inform better segmentations. But right now, we're treating the segmentation as a black box and focusing on what we do, which is the skeletons and the shapes. But I think what we're finding is, in fact, if we put a feedback cycle in, some of those black boxes let you feed backwards, and we seem to be improving segmentations.
All right, let's thank Erin again.